records is untenable. With those remarks, I urge you, honorable senators, to actually uphold this motion, and to the best of my belief and conviction, not only ground 11, which I have submitted, the rest of the grounds have been approved. Thank you very much. 2 minutes to Honorable Zamzam, who is also going to make a statement and a submission. Thank you very much.
Mheshimiwa Spika, kama mwakilishi wa bunge wa eneo bunge la Mombasa na bunge la taifa la Kenya, Mheshimiwa Spika, leo nimekuja hapa kuwaletea yale mashtaka ambayo yameonekana katika bunge letu. Mheshimiwa Spika, Mheshimiwa Spika, mengi yamezungumzwa. Mimi si mwanasheria, lakini mimi nazungumza kama yule Mkenya ambaye yuko pale chini, hajui sheria, hajui nini, anaomba amani katika taifa. Mheshimiwa Spika, Mheshimiwa Spika, video zimechezwa katika bunge hili. Tumeona Mheshimiwa Naibu wa Rais akijipiga kifua, hasa kule Taita Taveta. Nimeona Mheshimiwa Spika akiwaambia kuwa hawana shares, na akawaambia nyinyi kama mnataka hisa mungoje 2027, manake hata rais akinambia mimi niweze kuwaletea maendeleo, na mwambia kwanza subiri niangalie kwenye mfuko wangu wakiwa kama wako kwenye orodha ya kupewa maendeleo. Mheshimiwa Spika, Mheshimiwa Spika, ifahamike kuna wakati mmoja Kenya iliingia kwenye vita sana. Mheshimiwa Spika, tuliona maiti ya kina mama, mtoto hajui mama amekufa, mtoto alikuwa ananyonya matiti. Mheshimiwa Spika, Mheshimiwa Spika, hatuwezi kutaka taifa hili lirudi kule tena. Mheshimiwa Spika, Mheshimiwa Spika, ndani ya Mombasa nina wajane ambao wananitegemea sana. Mheshimiwa Spika, uniletea malilio yao, na leo mimi kama mama kaunti wa Mombasa nalia kwa sababu ya mayatima ambao waliwachwa na ndugu ya naibu wa rais. Mheshimiwa Spika, haiwezekani kuwa leo mimi na mume wangu tutafute mali yetu na tuna watoto wetu, kisha akifa ende mbele ya Mwenyezi Mungu nije nipokonywe mali yangu niache na watoto wangu wakihangaika. Mheshimiwa Spika, ukiangalia umri ya hawa watoto wa ndugu yake Mheshimiwa naibu wa rais wametoshea kupewa urithi wao. Mheshimiwa Spika, lakini hata kuna tetesi mwingine yoozea kule kwa jela. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi nasema, nilisikia mwanasheria akisema to save makanga. Mimi nasema makanga ameiba pesa ya abiria, dereva hana pesa ya kupelekea mwenye gari. Kwa hiyo mimi nasema wamwache dereva apeleke abiria mpaka station ya mwisho, kisha akifika kule atajua atatafuta makanga mwingine namna gani. Mheshimiwa Spika, hatuna sisi uchungu na watu wa mlima, lakini tunachosema tulikuwa na Uhuru, tulikuwa na Kibaki, tulikuwa na Kenyatta, hatukuwahi kuona mambo ambayo tumeona kwa deputy president. Mheshimiwa Spika, huyu ni sumu, atavuruga Kenya, ataharibu Kenya. Naomba bunge hili la Seneti, amani ya Kenya iko kwenye mikono yenu, na waomba mtoe uamuzi wa uhakika. Huyu jamaa hapendezi kabisa kuwa katika nafasi ambayo yuko ndani sasa, na waomba kwa heshima na taadhima tuweze kumtimua leo, Kenya iweze kupata mtu ambaye atamsaidia rais kufanya kazi akiwa ameweka amani na umoja wa Kenya mbele. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika.
Mr. Speaker, sir, very briefly, I will wrap up the submissions on the part of the National Assembly. I'll endeavor not to repeat what has already been captured on the record. Mr. Speaker, sir, I've agonized and reflected on the place of impeachment proceedings, not just in our country, but across the world and across other democracies. Mr. Speaker, sir, I've had occasion to look at the history, particularly of the United States of America, from the days of Andrew Johnson in 1868, Richard Nixon in 1974, Bill Clinton 1998, and Donald Trump 2019. Mr. Speaker, sir, I asked myself, what does impeachment proceedings seek to serve in a democracy? In my reflections, one of the clear conclusions is that it is a check and a balance through which the populace can then hold their leaders accountable. It is an avenue through which the populace can ask their leaders whether they're doing that which is in keeping with the social contract or the understanding that they had at the point of election or delegating their direct powers to those elected leaders. So in the context of Kenya, where then do we find impeachment? Mr. Speaker, sir, our history has taught us very bitter lessons. We remember the events that bedeviled our country after the 2007 elections. It is after those events that we gave ourselves a new constitution. In that new constitution, Mr. Speaker, sir, we found it necessary to, in an unprecedented way, speak about our values, speak about the fabric of our society, the things that pull us together, the things that we share as a people. The preamble to our constitution, in particular, paragraph 3, reads, "We, the people of Kenya, proud of our ethnic, cultural, religious diversity, and determined to live in peace and unity as one indivisible sovereign nation," and continues so on and so forth. From those words, we realize what the thinking of the Kenyan people was right from page 1 of framing of our constitution. We then went to substantive provisions. A lot has been said about Article 10 of our constitution, to the extent that it speaks to the values that as a people we want to be associated with. We have dedicated a whole chapter of our constitution to the questions around leadership and integrity. It then tells us how central the values that we hold are to each other as a nation. Now, if we look at impeachment from that lens, then we realize and appreciate that impeachment then comes in to hold our leaders at an even higher pedestal, so that we have a tone at the top that is acceptable, a tone that gives us what has been called elsewhere political hygiene. We have had occasion in this country where people who have been in positions of leadership have been treated in what other people have thought has been harsh treatments. But it is because when there's a tone at the leadership to be set, it must be clear, it must be vibrant, and it must be the right tone. We've had leadership, people from the leadership who've lost their office because of having pinched somebody. We have people who have lost their offices because of utterances that were considered inappropriate. A slap has gotten somebody to go through a fairly painful process. It is because the slap is not necessarily the issue, it is the message that it sends. And so similarly, when we talk about our leaders, we then must ask ourselves, what does one wrong word do to the fabric of our society? It is on the basis of that background that we then consider the impeachment motion that is currently before this House. My colleagues who have spoken before me have taken us through the provisions of Article 150, 1B, which then speaks to the very grounds that this House should consider in whether to impeach His Excellency, the Deputy President, or not. I wouldn't want to go into those grounds because the record before this House contains material in support of those grounds. I would urge, Mr. Speaker, sir, that now that His Excellency, the Deputy President, has had occasion to present material before this House, that this House could consider in response to the motion for impeachment. When you retire to debate, to deliberate, we urge that you take into consideration the entirety of that material. We also ask that you also take time to look at what the mover of the motion presented before this House, as well as all the witnesses, including what came from public participation. That would give us an opportunity to, in a very objective way, reflect on what and how to deal with the questions that have been presented. I need not go into the specifics of each of the charges, but if I was to give examples, when we have a leader occupying the high office of the deputy president of this country, somebody who is required by the Constitution to take an oath confirming or affirming to Kenyans that they will not divulge whatever comes out of secrecy, out of confidential conversations that come to their knowledge by virtue of the office that they occupy. If that person then defies that bond or that commitment that they've had with Kenyans, it is a gross violation. Similarly, when we have somebody occupying the space of the high calling of the office of the deputy president, admitting issues that would amount to conflict of interest between his personal interest, his family interest, and which have financial implications. Again, our laws then dictate that those are reasons that would amount, would be sufficient to impeach such a deputy president. We've had examples that have been given about utterances that have been considered to be unpalatable. Again, looking at the entire framework of what our Constitution anticipates, looking at what those words would mean to a man off the streets of Nairobi, off the streets of Mombasa, or any other place. If we all come to the understanding that those words taken in their natural meaning could cause some measure of discomfort, they are considered to be divisive, they are considered to be of such a nature as to bring or sow seeds of discord between us as people in this country, then it is the responsibility of this House to speak, and to speak on behalf of the people of Kenya, because it is one way of ensuring that there are checks and balances that flow from the constitutional powers vested in this House. Mr. Speaker, sir, as has been demonstrated through the many tons of documents that have been availed before this House, the cross-examination that has attended to the witnesses that have been before this House, and the material that has been placed by the mover, by all the parties who've had an opportunity to participate in the proceedings of this House, we have absolutely no doubt that this House is perfectly capable of making the appropriate decision in each and every of those counts. And just for emphasis, Article 150, Subarticle 1B gives us 3 grounds. We do not have to have beyond 1. Any one of those is more than sufficient to make the call or to pull the trigger on an impeachment motion. Mr. Speaker, with that, I rest, and we thank you for according us this opportunity this evening. Most obliged.
So, are you done now with your submissions?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you.
We are done.
Thank you. Now, honorable senators, I'll refer you to the program. You will notice that after the closing statements from the parties, the Senate is supposed to move to a closed session to deliberate on the issues that have been raised. And that is pursuant to our rules of procedure. That is demanded of us by the rules of procedure. So at this juncture, I will allow the parties to retire as the Senate moves to a closed session. That closed session will take us not more than half an hour. After that, we'll come back. Once we are back, there's going to be a special motion contained in an order paper That is the motion that will allow debate culminating into honorable senators getting the opportunity to cast their vote on each of those charges, of the 11 charges. So, Counsel for the National Assembly, you may now retire. Once we resume open session, of course, you resume your seats.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir.
The media